Coming up on this episode of Freedom from Fire, community safety is not just the responsibility of your local fire company. Everyone has a responsibility in community risk reduction. But what exactly is community risk reduction, and why is it so important? We'll find out. We'll also learn about the Special Operations Command within the Philadelphia Fire Department. Hello and welcome to another episode of Freedom from Fire. I'm your host for today, Assistant Deputy Commissioner Javon Davis. Here at Freedom from Fire, we aim to improve your quality of living by giving you fire and life safety information. We also introduce you to local safety partners. To start today's episode, we'll meet the Chief of Trenton Fire Department, Derrick Sawyer. Many of our viewers may remember him as the former Fire Commissioner of the Philadelphia Fire Department. Over the past decade, Chief Sawyer has traveled the globe to educate diverse communities on the effectiveness of community risk reduction as well as fire and life safety education. Identifying fire safety concerns in the community is an integral component of minimizing fires, fire fatalities, and reducing firefighter injuries and line of duty deaths. The goal to coordinate emergency operations within prevention and mitigation efforts throughout the community at the fire station level. So let's now talk with Chief Sawyer and gain a better perspective on the many benefits of community risk reduction. Chief Sawyer, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. How are you making out?
So far, so good. How are you?
Great. Welcome to the Philadelphia Fire Department.
Thank you. It's been great so far. First, let's kick off the show by learning more about you. Can you tell us more about yourself?
Sure. I'm a 31-year veteran of the fire service. I'm one of two people that held every single rank from firefighter to fire commissioner in the city of Philadelphia. I've worked 20 years in operations and then the last 11 in administration. I've had the opportunity to travel around the country. I've sat on technical committees like the NFPA 1730 committee. I've attended many conferences, a part of the Metro Chiefs. Again, just a lifelong public servant.
Great. Thank you for all that you've done to support fire and support the city, but also taking your efforts across the country.
Thank you.
Can you tell us more about what community risk reduction is?
So plain and simple, community risk reduction is a way to identify risk within the community. A lot of times people get focused on fire as a risk, but a lot of times there are multiple risks in the community. So what you do is you do a community risk assessment and identify the risk. And then once you identify those risks, you have to partner with community partners because, as you know, in the fire service, the budgets aren't always vast. There's a lot of limited budgets. So you partner with partners within the communities that can help you mitigate the risk. And then you develop a plan to mitigate the risk, and you implement your plan. And then you want to follow up that plan and see if you were successful or not. So you want to make sure you have some performance measures to make sure that you have accomplished your goals and mission.
Great. Why is it important to do that? I'm sure you've seen across the country maybe what communities look like with risk reduction efforts and those without. Why is it important to emphasize that?
Well, one of the things that makes it very important in today's economy where cities are trying to cut back. So 2007-08, we had a huge economic downturn. One of the things about community risk reduction is a way to build equity in the community and show your worth as a member of the fire service or a fire service organization. So for example, if you do your assessment and you come across a couple of risks, you can build equity by saying not only are we going to help educate you and protect you from the risk and ravages of fire, but let's say that there's a lot of accidents where children are falling off of bikes and injuring themselves. So we might put together a bike helmet program or car seats. You have a lot of multiple accidents with children involved. You can say, if this is going on in my city, I can develop a program where we put car seats in cars to help keep our children safe. It could be something, swimming pool drownings in the summertime. So that risk assessment that you do initially is going to identify what those risks are, and then you, again, partner with people that can help you mitigate those risks. Because you may not have the resources to do it in your fire department alone. So by developing those community partners, so for example, we partner with the Red Cross for smoke alarms. They help us with funding of smoke alarms occasionally, and it helps us get into more homes. So once you identify those risks, develop your mitigation strategies, those partnerships help you accomplish the goal that you're trying to accomplish.
Can you talk more about some specific examples of when it's really worked for the communities you've seen and worked in?
So here, we partnered with Boston Consulting Group about 2 or 3 years ago, and they actually did a real thorough risk assessment, because that's one of the biggest challenges. A lot of departments say, we don't know how to do a risk assessment, or it's hard to do a risk assessment. So partnering with Boston Consulting Group, they actually did a thorough risk assessment, and they were able to identify the high-risk neighborhoods. And the reason why that's important is because without knowing where those high-risk neighborhoods are, you can wind up going all over the city targeting low-risk communities or medium-risk communities. And how do you get your biggest impact? By hitting the high-risk communities, because they're the ones that's going to be more susceptible to fires, more injuries. So once they did the risk assessment, we put together a pilot program where we installed over 3,000 smoke alarms in a pilot area. It happened to be in West Philadelphia, where we had the highest number of fire fatalities the year before. And as a result of that program, we had no fire fatalities in that area the next year after the pilot program. One of the unintended consequences that were great about that program was that we also had a lower number of fires. And we attributed that to the public education campaign that went along with the installation of the smoke alarms. So that had a huge impact to the point where we said we would start to implement that throughout the city. Identify the high-risk communities, target those high-risk areas, and then we could drive that number down faster. And as a result, we had the lowest number of fire fatalities in the history of the city of Philadelphia. So that year, I believe we had 12 fatalities, which was huge, because at the time our goal was 0 fire fatalities. And although that's a huge challenge, I think reaching the 12 was a great accomplishment.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I can tell you're a huge advocate for community risk reduction. So I'm assuming you think that most, or not all, fire departments should be using this type of methods in their communities.
So what it does is without that, a lot of times it's like throwing spaghetti on the wall and seeing what sticks.
Mm-hmm.
So when you do that risk assessment and you can identify a tangible risk, it helps you have tangible goals and objectives. And again, when you're at a time when cities or administrations are trying to cut your budget, it gives you tangible evidence that you're bringing equity to the community, and you're going to have an impact and reduce life hazards and risk in the community.
Do you think current fire department culture is really accepting of community risk reduction?
I think it's growing around the country. So the fire service is interesting in that it takes about 20 years for a fire service to change its culture. So for example, when I came into the job, the using of self-contained breathing apparatus was not totally accepted because of the macho mentality. But nowadays, because you have that going in from your training straight from the beginning, you won't see many people not wearing a self-contained breathing apparatus, which is safety equipment to help you keep safe, helps reduces cancer and things like that. So I do think that a lot of departments are realizing the importance of it. They are starting to see the value because of programs like Vision 2020, where they have a symposium every 2 years, and people come and talk about their community risk reduction programs and how it impacts their community. And those performance measures help you tell your story and show the impact. So now again, you're building value in your organization and to the administrators that are giving you or approving your budget.
Great. What are some specific changes that someone should make if they want their CRR plan to be successful?
Well, the first thing, you have to have buy-in from the top. Any program within the fire service, if you don't have buy-in from the top, it's not going to be successful. So there's an old saying I used to say, whatever the chief is looking at, that's what gets done.
Mm-hmm.
So for example, if the chief likes the vehicles to be clean, the vehicles will be spotless, but the kitchen may be dirty. And vice versa. If he likes the bathrooms clean, the bathrooms will be spotless and the vehicles will be dirty. So you need that buy-in from the top first and foremost, so that it becomes part of the department's culture and part of their DNA.
Great. How important is risk management as it relates to community risk reduction?
I think risk management and community risk reduction are kind of the same component, because again, you may identify 3 risks, right, within your community, but it doesn't mean you can address all 3 risks. Mm-hmm. And same as risk management. So risk management, you have the concept of what is the acceptable risk that you're willing to accept. Can you mitigate it or prevent it? Well, it's kind of the same with community risk reduction. You might identify 3 risks, and you may say, I don't have the resources to address all 3. So let me pick the one that I can address, and let me see how many people in the community can help me mitigate that risk.
Great. You talked about community partnerships. What about engaging the actual community when talking about community risk reduction? Can you talk about what it means to go out to talk to the community about this type of a project?
Well, you've heard this saying, I'm quite sure, fire is everyone's fight. And that means involving the community also. So we can identify the risk. We can add some things. You have engineering, enforcement, education, emergency response, and economic incentives, right? So out of those 5, the education component is just as important as everything else. So when you go out and engage the community, educate them, tell them and teach them how to be safe and get that buy-in, you'll see your numbers drop drastically, because they're an active participant in reducing those risks. So we can put up the smoke alarm. But if you're still cooking unsafely, if you still have electric cords plugged in unsafely, if your space heaters aren't properly spaced, if you're still doing those risky things and have that risky behavior, no matter how many measures we put up or safety measures we put in, you're still going to have the fire. So the goal is not to have the fire in the first place, but if you do have the fire, to get out safely, because no one really has to die in the fire.
Great. Chief Sawyer, really appreciate you coming out and being on the show today.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you, of course.
Be safe.
We will.
Enjoy Philadelphia.
We're going to take a short break, but when we return, we'll hear about the Special Operations Command and what they do. Stay with us.
This is Kevin, and Kevin could use some kindness. Here's Ian. He could be that man. Ian chooses to be inconsiderate and not hold the door for Kevin, and in turn, Kevin suffers. Kindness may be a choice, but doing so is always the right one. So if Ian can make the right choice, you can too.
Welcome back to Freedom from Fire. I'm your host, Assistant Deputy Commissioner Javon Davis. The Philadelphia Fire Department provides fire and protection and emergency medical services to the city of Philadelphia. But did you know that we have a specialized division that deals with all kinds of hazards, such as chemical spills, natural disasters, marine operations, and technical rescue? Some of these members also deploy with a PATF-1, one of the nation's 28 urban search and rescue FEMA teams. When man-made or natural disasters occur, members can be deployed to anywhere in the country. Here to tell us about the Special Operations Command Division is Deputy Chief Carl Randolph. He has been a member of the department for 24 years. He has served in the field as a firefighter and officer at various firehouses, and for the past couple of years, he has been the city's Chief Fire Marshal. He is now assigned as the Deputy Commissioner of SOC, Special Operations Command, also we call them SOC, in which he is assigned to the very first SOC class in 2003. Let's chat with Deputy Chief Randolph to learn exactly what Special Operations Command does and how they help citizens just like you. Thank you for being here. Appreciate having you.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, of course. Since you're really an OG of the SOC game here in Philadelphia, can you tell us what that's like to be the first class and then going into the field as now overseeing the division?
Yes, first of all, it's an honor to be the Special Operations Command Deputy Chief. So it's an honor to stand over there, being that I started in the very first tech rescue school that the Philadelphia Fire Department offered. Way back in 2003, I believe we started the hazmat. In 2004, the tech rescue school kicked off. The interesting component from back then was that you trained with your members, the folks that were on the back step with you. So everyone got the opportunity to hone their skills together. So we went up as a company every day, every single day, to learn hazmat, hazardous materials incidents, how you mitigate hazmat incidents, how you be safe at hazmat incidents. We also did rope rescue. So when you're hanging off the 5th story of a building, you know that your comrades and the folks that you trained with knew the equipment, and you had a lot of confidence in the equipment and their skills and techniques and abilities. So that was a very interesting part. One of the most interesting parts, and I believe the least able to mitigate danger, was being in the river up at Scudder's Falls when we had to be swiftwater rescue trained. There were some days that the training was called off because the river was just it was too bad out in the river, because you actually got into the river and Mother Nature took control. So the techniques that you learn to rescue folks who were drowning or maybe going downriver was amazing. It was just amazing to know, and it's a place that felt like home for me, where I should always be.
Great. So can you talk more specifically about what SOC is to someone who maybe has no idea? How would you explain it to them? Okay,
so first of all, the folks in the Philadelphia Fire Department, all the men and women in the Philadelphia Fire Department are the pedigree of those folks is amazing. They're great people to work with. I've been around them for the past 24 plus years, and they're great. Now, to take that a step further, there are some incidents that occur in our city where you're going to need some specialty equipment. You're going to need some specialized training, and you're going to need some organized way of mitigating that incident. And I'm going to talk about some of those a little bit later. However, Special Operations then decided we put this together. The hazmat team, the marine operations that occurs on the water. We've had boat fires and incidents on the rivers, on both the Delaware and Schuylkill. We have tech rescue personnel who actually, anything from rope to BVR, basic vehicle rescue, when we have people trapped in vehicles or heavy machinery and equipment. We have our hazardous materials folks who take care of any CBRN, chemical, biological, radiological, or nuclear incidents. I was the hazmat administrative unit chief when I was a battalion chief, and one of the things that I did when we were there was we partnered with the FBI, we partnered with the Secret Service. We had 2 NSSE's national special security events in the city of Philadelphia within 10 months, which is unheard of.
Wow.
And I had the opportunity to set up hazmat for the region as well as within the city with FBI, with Secret Service, and with our police department, counterterrorism unit. So we had a lot of experience with that, and it's just been a great road to travel for me being in special operations.
Great. You kind of detailed a little bit, can you touch more on the day-to-day duties and responsibilities under SOC?
So day to day, so our companies that are out in the field, we kind of administratively take care of those folks. So Special Operations Command is my office, and under my office, I have 3 reports. There's a Homeland Security report that we didn't even touch on yet, and he works at the DIVIC, the Delaware Valley Intelligence Center, which brings in intelligence for the region, things that we might need to know that's going on within our community. So he reports directly to me. Then we have a Hazardous Materials Administrative Unit who supports our hazmat team. We have a hazmat response team, Hazmat 1, who is certified by PEMA to be able to go out and mitigate incidents. And what's significant about being certified by PEMA is that we're able to do cost recovery. Cost recovery meaning that when there's an incident that occurs and we have to use personal protective equipment like the suits, level A suits, they're extremely expensive. They can go beginning around $2,000 to $5,000 for a suit. And those suits have permeation rates. So if you're around any type of chemical and it permeates through your suit, we do have a rate at which it permeates the suit. So we know what's going on with our folks inside the suit. It's a safety factor. So we can recover that cost from the responsible party, and going out to investigate the incident, we discover who the responsible party is at any of those. So we have that, and I had the opportunity to do that. Also, we have the marine operations where we've had several watercraft that had fires, and we were able to get the marine unit over. And I know specifically once I was at Battalion 1, which is the Hazmat Operations Battalion out in the field in South Philly, and there was a large fire in Camden across the river. So we assisted Camden, so we got on the fireboat and went over, and we had the fireboat manage to supply water to the folks in Camden. So there's a lot we can do with the Marine unit. Rescue 1, the technical rescue, the large truck, tool truck with 6 very skilled individuals who also went to tech rescue school, some with me, that are still there hanging on. They actually go out, and anything from building collapses to, we had a collapse at 22nd Street that was major that we responded to with Rescue 1. And then significantly, we have the Pennsylvania Task Force 1 that's stationed here in Philadelphia. My office is in that building up on New State Road. Well, that's a federal asset. The fire commissioner, Teal, is the representative. He is the sponsoring agency. So he is the guy who brought that here. So because it's here, it's also a local asset. If we were in that much trouble, we could use PA Task Force 1 to help us out. So it's very interesting. We have Squad 72 and Squad 47, which I was a lieutenant at Squad 72 in 2004, December 1st, when Tech Rescue actually kicked off, finally. Those two companies are kind of hybrid because they do Tech Rescue. They also have a normal local, so they respond to our local fires in their local district. They respond to anything that happens in their local district. Also, they have an enhanced response area just in case special operations kick off, with a second truck that they take with them, and if there's something, they have boats, they can get in the water for swift water rescue. They have all types of, I could start naming stuff like struts and to stabilize unstable buildings if we have to go in and get folks out. So those companies are very significant to what we do, and it makes the world interesting.
Great, sounds like you're busy.
Very.
Can you kind of briefly tell us some of the emergencies or situations that SOC has been a part of that a viewer may recognize by what you're saying about it? Or?
Correct. So we'll start, because I mentioned it already, is the 22nd Street collapse. We had a collapse there where SOC was very instrumental in helping out, where we had to rescue some people and a few fatalities there. We also had the duck boat incident where SOC responded, and people, I'm sure, will remember that. And maybe the latest was Amtrak 188. And I think I went out on the 3rd operational period as SOC command on the incident scene. So Commissioner Sawyer was actually the fire commissioner when that happened, and I briefed with him. And after a briefing, and I went and talked to the folks, we were looking for one individual specifically, and we came up with a plan. The police lieutenant from counterterrorism and myself, we split the teams. And before we put any human beings out there, we also have dogs on those teams. Really? So we sent the dogs out, and wherever the dogs came up with a hit, where there may be a human, we dropped flags. So within about 13 minutes of being there, we had found and extricated the last person that we were looking for in that particular incident. So, you know, we've been out on some really significant incidents, and even later than that, the unfortunate incident that we had at 22nd and Colorado Street with Captain Matt Letourneau. The Special Operations Company were very instrumental there, and even the 9.5 days that the Fire Marshal's office spent there with ATF doing an investigation, we were able to get the tech rescue teams to come back out to stabilize the building so that they could assist us with our investigation.
Great.
Yeah.
Chief, thanks you for coming on and telling us more about SOC. It's been really informative to hear that.
No problem, anytime. I'm always willing to talk about SOC.
Great.
All right.
Remember, if you would like to find out more about LaSalle TV, you can check out our social media sites. And if you're still interested in learning about the Philadelphia Fire Department, visit our Facebook, Twitter, and web pages. I would like to once again thank our guests for joining us today. I also like to thank you for tuning in and watching. So until next time, remember, fire is everyone's fight. Stay safe and remain free from fire.